Hi, guys. Welcome back. Listen, today we're going to visit one fat beat. I will put her channel in the description. She's going to go over some embarrassing things she experienced when she was up there in the area of 350 to 400 pounds. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to hit pause on my volume and we're going to hear what she has to say.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and this is all about my life after gastric bypass surgery. And in today's video, I'm going over 10 embarrassing things that are easier now that I've lost weight. I used to think that people were constantly looking at me, and I used to feel that they were judging me or that they were laughing about me. There were a lot of situations where I would be out in public and I would be so uncomfortable with myself just being out in public that anytime I heard people laughing, especially if it was like a group of younger boys, I just assumed and was just super worried and embarrassed that they were laughing at me because I was walking down the road or, I was out and about doing something. A really good example of this is several years ago, I used to live only about a mile away from my work. And for a while, I was actually biking to and from work. But I remember feeling like everybody's eyes in all the cars along the road were staring at me and judging me for being this fat girl on a bicycle biking to work. I always assumed people would be looking at me and being like, wow, she's way too fat for a bike. And I've noticed now, since I've lost weight, that those thoughts don't consume me anymore.
I hope thoughts like that never consume your mind. And if they do, I'm sorry that you go through that. What I would say to you is if you're in her situation where there's periods of life where you're only 1 mile away from your work, why don't you consider walking once or twice a week? It might be a great way to get some extra credit in.
I'm not absolutely worried all the time about what other people are thinking about me. There is a confidence that has come with this, and it's unfortunate because I really wish that I had that confidence when I was heavier, because I should never leave my house and feel like people are judging me. And in the vast majority of situations, I'm sure absolutely nobody was actually looking at me and judging me and laughing at me. 5 is that I used to always be worried about what cashiers were thinking about the food that I was checking out with. And this was both in like a grocery store situation where I was worried about the things that were in my cart and whether or not somebody would judge me for the healthy or non-healthy food choices that I was making. But even if I had a relatively healthy mix of food in my cart, if I had like one thing in there that was a bad choice, I was worried that somebody was going to be like, well, that's why she's fat. She's got that pie in there. And
Okay, that was a little funny. So check this out. She's up at the register, right? And she's stressing out about her pie, like, God, I hope this guy doesn't think, I'm, eating junk food, right? And then the poor guy behind the register is like, oh my God, she doesn't even want to look me in the face because I'm a cashier. Beep, beep.
wonder if she's going to eat the whole thing herself. And it just kind of feeds off of that idea that everybody was looking at me and judging me for everything that I did. I know rationally that that's probably not happening, but that's where my mind was going. And the biggest example of this is when I would go out to fast food. I talked about this in my binging video and kind of the food that I used to eat. Like, for example, when I would go to McDonald's, I would have way too big of a portion. So I would get something like a Big Mac meal, and I'd probably make it large, but I would also want to have a McChicken because I loved the taste of McChicken. 6 is that I used
Whoa, hold on. So, see, that's the problem with McDonald's, right? It's really not the burgers that you just got from McDonald's. It's the burgers with the fries, with the extra apple pie, with the extra large soda, right? The extra large fries. You keep piling on and on. Ooh, I like the McChicken, and maybe I'll get an extra one for later on tonight. And before you know it, you've just given yourself a cacophony. Is that even a word? A cacophony of junk food. Just have the burger, give somebody else the fries, and instead of the soda, maybe get an unsweetened tea. Boom. Thank you, Jesse. You've solved another one for us. I know. I know.
to always have to use the handicap stall. A regular stall at a public restroom was too cramped for me, and I just felt like I couldn't quite fit in it in the way that I needed to in order to get my business done. It was too tight to maneuver. It didn't feel comfortable. And then I was always worried about the fact that I was using a handicap stall, and like, what if I took the handicap stall for somebody who was actually handicapped and needed it, and then I walk out of the stall and they're like, great, if Fat Girl was in it and I've had to pee for like 3 minutes now.
I thought that was kind of funny. So I was watching this video earlier, right? And I looked over her one shoulder and she has like a bottle of Coca-Cola that's empty, right? And I'm sure that that's decorative, but when I saw it, I was just like, God, she's got a bottle of Coca-Cola up there. It looks like behind her other shoulder, she has like an open bag of potato chips, but I could be wrong. I'm just being a jerk. Let's continue on.
I was really worried that I was going to get myself in a situation like that. But the fact of the matter is I couldn't really use a regular stall. So I probably needed to use the handicap stall just as much as someone else did. Girls gotta pee. But number 7 is kind of along those same lines. And this is where we're starting to get into some really, really embarrassing situations. One of the reasons a regular stall was not good enough for me is because I had a really hard time wiping myself when I got to be about 400 pounds. It's not that I couldn't do it, and I just want to put that out there, that I was able to wipe myself, and I could do it, but it was difficult. And it was something that I actually found that I had to maneuver myself in a certain way in order to do. And a lot of times I would end up putting my shoulder up against the stall wall, and how do I say this? Leaning against it in such a way that I would force my arm back further than I could reach on its own. And then I could wipe without a problem. But just standing and wiping in any direction, I could not reach what I needed to reach without assistance. And so I found that I could do that. I found that I could press my arm up against the wall to physically make sure that I could reach what I needed to reach. And that's one reason why the smaller stalls didn't work for me, not only because there wasn't a lot of room for maneuvering, but the handicap stalls usually are in the corner of a bathroom against an actual full-fledged wall. And then I'd be able to actually lean against that and put my weight against it and not be leaning against the stall walls. So,
Yeah, that is really a tough deal. Here's the one thing that you can have as solace here if you've had this situation before. Almost every bathroom is disgusting. It is amazing what we stick our rear ends on in this country, right? If you have an embarrassing or gross porta potty story or whatever, please share it with us. Those are great.
that there was a big reason why I honestly had to do that. And I had to do the same thing at home. I had to lean up against the wall a lot of times in order to reach the things that I needed to reach. I used to get really sweaty, and not just generally, like if I was walking around or just existing and like sweating heavily, but I really noticed that I would get sweaty down there, and I would get sweaty on my butt. I mean, I'd get butt sweats. Sometimes it would be bad enough that I'd leave like a little sweat triangle on a plastic chair. And if you've ever done that, you know exactly what I mean, right? Whereas like my butt was all humid and sweaty. And like when I stood up from the chair, you could see that it was all sweaty, and it was super embarrassing to me. I would do things like try to leave a chair by going like this and sliding my thigh along it while I stood up, so it would like wipe if I thought that that was something that I was gonna have to deal with. But it was also something that I noticed just in my underwear. Everything was moist. I just was too sweaty, and I didn't realize that that wasn't normal, or that that could be better. And it's like not a problem anymore. But I didn't realize that you're not just all the time moist between your legs. That's what she said.
Hey, we got a good one in there at the end. I like that one. So this is One Fat Beat. Again, I'll put her channel in our description. I'd love for you guys to visit her and check out her videos. She kind of goes from her journey from getting the weight loss surgery to now, and it's pretty fascinating. I think you guys will like it. With that being said, I'm glad that she talked about that last one, the sweaty thing. One thing I've noticed, and I think you'll notice it too, is that when you lose 25, 35 pounds, somewhere in there, you'll notice a drastic decrease in the amount that you sweat. You'll still sweat, you're a normal human being that sweats, right? But it's a lot less. And when I'm heavier than I like to be, I sweat like crazy. So it's one benefit that you're only a handful of days away from. So, well, maybe a couple of months away from. But either way, let's grab our shoes and let's go for a walk. Well, guys, today is 10:15. I haven't taken a day off of work in about 3 or 4 months straight. So I figured I would take a day off. I mean, I get my weekends off, but I haven't take like a paid day off. And I've got some PTO time kind of saved up, so I figured I would take a day off and maybe do a midday type of walk. It's 10:15 Arizona time, and it is Thursday, in case you're wondering. I don't know the date right off the top of my head. What is it, the 12th or something like that? But I wanted to talk with you guys about something that I keep forgetting to talk with you guys about, and that's seasons. I want you to do a memory exercise with me, a little imagination exercise, but it's a true imagination. I want you to real quick think back to Christmas and New Year's. And even though it seems like just yesterday, because as you get older, time flies, and it was just yesterday, right? But I want you to think about what you were doing then. At Christmas, were you doing what I was doing? Were you eating lots of holiday treats like cookies and things from your stocking stuffer, right? Were you eating a lot of treats like that? Were you doing what you're doing now, which is walking every day, drinking water every day, and avoiding sugar every day? I'm guessing that your answer is no to that question. And that's why I want to talk with you about seasons. Every day, every year on this planet, we go through 4 seasons. And basically each season is what, about 3 months long. And that's why I created this challenge as a 90-day challenge, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be going from one season to the other. Let me get rid of this telemarketer, the endless telemarketers. They're not even from this country. They call me from India and Pakistan. But anyway, we have 4 seasons in a year. Every 90 days, this is my opinion, but I think it's really, really true. Not only do the seasons on the earth change, but the seasons that we go through as people change. For example, if I rewind 3 months back, I'm recovering from my surgery. I'm not so happy-go-lucky because I'm a little blue and depressed, right? I'm gaining weight left and right. I'm not able to walk, at least not the way I want to walk, because I've got this giant bandage on my tailbone at the time, right? And basically my life was completely different than it is nowadays. I would argue that your life was completely different as well. Now, it's easy to say this now because I know you guys are joining me on this little journey, right? So I know that now you're walking every day. I know now you're drinking water all the time. And I know now you're trying to avoid sweets. So I'm assuming at Christmas time it was the exact opposite. You probably weren't in a daily routine. You probably were eating sugar and trying to keep control of it, but you and I were both definitely eating sweets around the holidays, right? And if you move forward 90 days, we're going to be in a different season. Let me tell you what the season's going to be like 90 days from now. 90 days, we're going to be walkers, right? We can already predict that because we're already starting to get into our walking routine. And so in 90 days, instead of being 1, 2, or 3 weeks into your walking routine, you're going to have a whole 3 months behind your back, right? And what that means is that going forward, you're going to be able to look back at this season of your life and say, hey, that was the time when I started my walking routine. And I'm hoping that your walking routine is something that you keep for the rest of your life, okay? In 3 months, you're going to be able to say, hey, I've been sugar-free for 3 months, or if not completely sugar-free, I am doing so much better on my sugar intake when it comes to processed sugars than I was just 3 months ago. And then 3 months ago is going to be like that, right? And I know this sounds crazy, but it is my belief that whether you do this exercise component with me or not, every 3-month period, your life is radically different. Now, I know you might be thinking, I don't know about that. I feel like I've been living Groundhog's Day, right? My life never changes. But it really does. 3 months ago, your kids might have been living at home, and maybe over the last 3 months, they decided to get their own apartment and move out. 3 months ago, your kids might have been in relationships with boyfriends or girlfriends or significant others. They might no longer be in those relationships, right? Because when we're young, we can be with somebody and have a volatile type relationship and be broken up with them the next day, right? You might also have a situation where your grandchildren, they might be learning how to read, they might be learning how to write, they might have gotten their first cell phone for Christmas. So there's all these things that happen throughout the course of the year that equate to our own personal seasons. The only difference between now and back then is because we're embarking on a walking plan, because we're also embarking on a little bit of a dietary change, we can kind of start to predict the future. Because now you're diving into your think tank every day, you can make proactive plans. No different than if you plan a vacation, right? Hey, this Christmas we're gonna go to Hawaii. So you start saving your money, you envision yourself on the beaches in Hawaii, right? The big island out there. And before you know it, that day comes and yeah, you actually board the plane and you go to Hawaii. Well, this is no different, guys. We're actually plotting next season now. We're gonna be 30 pounds less. We're gonna be eating better than ever. We no longer look at this walking thing as a 90-day challenge. Many of us have confirmed that, hey, I want to keep this going forever. Being healthy, eating better, and being active is a decision that we all make. So if you go forward 3 months, life is going to be different than it is now. What would you do if you could fast forward, look into your crystal ball, and you see yourself 30 pounds lighter? Would you want to celebrate by going out and going shopping, right? Getting a completely new wardrobe? Do you want to keep it going? You know, let's say you're 240 pounds. In 3 months, we get you down to 210, 215, right? Do you want to keep going? Do you want to get under 200? What are some of your goals? Have any of you taken a before and after picture? Why don't you get against a white wall in your home, right? Or a bare wall that doesn't have too much clutter, right? And why don't you take a before picture? Why don't you remind yourself what you look like right now? So that way in 90 days, you can take another picture and see how much differently you look. I think that's a great idea. Every time we go through 90-day periods, life greatly changes. Now, it doesn't seem like it changes because we've been going through these periods forever, but it really does. Somebody told me yesterday, I think it was Mala, said, hey, I just bought a brand new pair of shoes. Mala, did you buy those brand new pair of shoes because you would have bought them anyway? Or did you buy them because you're embarking on a walking journey and you want some new shoes to go with it, right? Sometimes we do things and we don't even realize that, wow, that was kind of faded out. Would you have ever bought that new pair of shoes if it wasn't for your walks, right? So now we're on a new timeline, guys, a timeline that we wouldn't normally have been on. You guys were not planning on finding a show on YouTube called Walk, Talk, Vent. You guys were not planning on joining a walking club, right? But now here you are, completely different today than you were just 3 months ago. And in 3 short months, you're gonna be completely different then than you are now. So I just want to let you know that right now what we're doing is we're basically laying down the seeds in the garden we'll call our future, okay? And so every time you walk, what you're doing is you're getting a day closer to that person you're going to be in just 3 months. Every time you choose to drink water rather than really sweet juices or drinks or sodas, you're getting 1 day closer
to that next season and that person you're going to be in just 90 days, okay? The cool thing as you get older is you start to realize how quickly 90 days can happen. If you stare at your scale every single day, you're never gonna see much change, right? You might lose a half a pound, you might lose a quarter pound, you might gain that, right? But if you can get used to weighing yourself weekly or monthly, or hey, here's a challenge for you. What if you weigh yourself on day one so you have an idea of what you weigh? And what if you just waited 90 days to weigh yourself again? Now, for some of you, that's impossible, right? We're curious, we want to know where we're at, we want to know if we're wasting time. But that's where you have to tell yourself, there is no wasting of time when you're being healthy, okay? When you see a person at the gym, they're not at the gym working out because they're expecting all the change to happen right there while they're working out. They're working out because they know in X amount of weeks or X amount of months, they're going to start to reap the benefits and see the change. You've got to get that in your head, in your way of thinking too. We can do this. It's just a question of if we're going to stick with it. If you're starting to get a little bit, how can I say this? If you're starting to enjoy your walk and you kind of can't imagine going a day without walking now, put that in the comments, because sometimes people want to know that they're not the only one that are thinking like this. I knew right away many years ago, I was told that I had high cholesterol, and I was given a choice from my doctor, Dr. Turner. He said, Jesse, there's two routes we can go about with this. He goes, I can give you a little time to see if you can get your cholesterol and your weight under control, or we do have medications. And I'm glad I did my homework on what statins were and are, and if you're on a statin, you know you're on a statin for life. I didn't want to go that route, at least not in my 20s. So one night, shortly thereafter talking to the doctor, I got my shoes on and I went for a walk, and I've been walking ever since. Now here's the thing, before I started that first walk, I had grown up as a walker. I knew that all during grade school and elementary and junior high and high school that I enjoyed walking to school. So I knew that taking a half hour to an hour walk each day would not be that big of a deal to me. And so I started embarking on that walking journey. About 2 or 3 months later, I went in to get my lab work with the doctor, and he was impressed. He was like, look, I don't know what you're doing, but your lab work looks a lot better. He goes, I don't think we need to go the route of the statin, at least not yet. Keep doing what you're doing. We'll check your numbers every year, and if we ever have to revisit it, we'll revisit it then, you know? In other words, he didn't think I was a walking heart attack or stroke, you know? Many of us aren't. Don't be that person that waits until they've had a heart attack or stroke. If you have recovered from a heart attack or stroke and you're feeling much better now and you are healthier now than you used to be, maybe share that in the comments, because were there red flags that you could have seen? Do you wish you would have started doing what you're doing now with regards to being more active? Do you wish you would have started it then and maybe been able to avoid that heart attack or stroke? You know, I would imagine when you experience something kind of traumatic like that, I'd imagine it kind of switches your thoughts from, hey, I'm young and invincible, to, holy crap, I do have an expiration date, right? Remember, our goal here is we can't really predict how long we're going to live, but we know that by acting healthy and doing positive things with our health, we can kind of prolong our expiration date. And that's what this is all about. Grabbing our shoes, grabbing our bottle of water, avoiding the sweet stuff, and just keep going forward, knowing that we're walking into that next season. You guys are starting the groundwork, the building blocks of doing something that's going to be really big, right? Imagine this time next year, you've gone through not one, but 4 seasons of walking, right? Because there's 4 seasons in a year. All of a sudden, instead of 2 or 3 weeks under your belt, you've got 52 weeks under your belt. You're not going to be 30 pounds less than you are now. You're going to be probably closer to 40 or 50 pounds less. Because believe me, I have to stop doing some of the things that we do as we get closer to the 90 days. Otherwise, I'll keep shrinking. I literally probably could get down to 130 pounds, but oh my God, I would look like a twig and my head would look all giant. My head is already gigantic, you know? But you guys aren't gonna wanna stop. You're gonna really love what happens when you get to the end of this season. So I want you to kind of start looking at it like that. And you can prove this to yourself. Look back at what you were doing at Christmas, much different than what you're doing today. Look back at what you were doing this time last year. This time last year, you were probably making plans to go eat at dinners and restaurants with friends and family, right? Not even thinking about your health. What changed that? Did you guys go to the doctors and get lab work done and find out you had high cholesterol? Did your doctor tell you, hey, John, you're starting to become pre-diabetic? You know, hey, Lori, there's some health things on your chart here that I want to go over. Have you had the statin talk or the high blood pressure medicine talk with your doctor? Do you want to get on medication that more than likely once you're on it, you won't be able to get off? That's why certain medications like Ozempic and Wegovy kind of freak me out. If the average person was just on it for 3 or 4 months and it kind of changed their way of thinking of things, I'd be all for it. But apparently, once you get on those medicines, it's for life. And once again, if those aren't covered by your insurance, those medications can run in excess of $1,000 a month. Now, I don't know about you, maybe you're in a spot financially where you can afford $1,000 a month, but I don't think many of us are. So I don't think it's a realistic approach long term. Now, don't get me wrong, I know there's people that are watching this video now that are on Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro, and they're probably shaking their head because you're in a different season now, guys. You're a month or two into Mounjaro or Ozempic. You've lost 15, 20, 30 pounds, and you feel like it's the greatest thing ever, and it is. And you should be happy and proud of yourself. The medicine didn't lose that weight for you. It was changes within your diet caused by the medicine. The medicine made it where you didn't crave food as much. The medicine made it where you couldn't eat as much, right? And you slowly but surely knocked off pounds, maybe even quickly and surely, right? But we have to still find a way where you can be healthy, even if you're losing weight, and even if you're one of these people that's losing weight without doing any changes at all, because that sometimes happens with those drugs. I still think you should contemplate joining us with a walk. You know you need to keep your water intake up. Join us. We believe in taking water, right? So if you drink water and you increase your walking, those are things that are going to make Ozempic, Mounjaro, and Wegovy work that much better for you. If you're coming off of weight loss surgery, you can still join us, right? Walking, drinking water, and avoiding sugar, it helps with weight loss surgery. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm against you, and I'm not against those surgeries or those medications either. They have their proper place and usage for certain people. But I think some of us kind of are looking for an easier way to get things done. And if you really are looking for something easy to do, even though from the outside appearances, this diet thing that we're doing might seem kind of challenging, you know, let's be honest, when you go up to somebody and say, I've decided to walk every day for the rest of my life, that's a big commitment, isn't it? It's a huge commitment. A lot of people would not be able to sign off on that. But you know what I know now, that if you can just start doing it for 2 or 3 weeks, you start to realize that, hey, when I put one foot in front of the other, it's not the worst thing ever, that we can overcome and we can accomplish these things, right? It's fun. I like being a part of our little walking club, and I hope you enjoy it as well. You know? The other day, it was last night actually, or the night before, we watched a video where the girl talked about, it was Brielle. She talked about Single White Female. Single White Female is such a good movie. I can't get it out of my head now. I want you guys to all watch it if you haven't. It's one of these movies where sometimes in life we have a breakup. Within that breakup, sometimes we're stuck in an apartment or a house that we're renting, and we don't want our credit to go bad, so we end up looking for a roommate. In Single White Female, Bridget Fonda puts an ad in the paper. You remember the newspaper? It's, this thing of white pieces of paper we used to read every day, right? People don't really read the newspaper too much anymore because it talks about yesterday's news. But anyway, she puts an ad in the paper, and then I think it's Ali Sheedy is the co-actor in the film. She ends up taking up that ad and becoming her roommate. And at first, it's just a shy girl living with Bridget Fonda, and they look completely different. One is a vibrant redhead with short hair. The other has kind of straggly brunette hair, right? Yeah, straggly brunette. But slowly but surely, they become best friends. Slowly but surely, they start to get the same hairstyle. And then one day, Ali Sheedy comes up to Bridget Fonda, and she looks just like her. Short red hair, a vibrant look, right? Trying to be kind of sexy and seductive. And she pulls it off. She ends up looking like quite the catch, right? Which, by the way, I think a lot of women have that ability. I think you guys can put on some makeup, dress to the nines, and, look like a completely different person. A lot of people in general have that ability to really dress themselves up if they choose to, right? But anyway, in this movie, she literally ends up taking over Bridget Fonda's life. She ends up sneaking into the bed with the boyfriend. There's this one moment where the boyfriend kind of looks at her like, oh my God, I'm making love to the wrong person, right? And it's just one of those psychological thrillers that, just a great movie. I absolutely love movies. And I think I told you guys this the other day. I'll even watch a movie if it's on the Hallmark Channel or Lifetime. I don't necessarily need full-blown nudity or a bunch of curse words for a movie to work for me. Are you the same way? Do you like the occasional Lifetime or Hallmark movie? If you do, maybe let me know in the comments. But back to the seasons that we were talking about. Guys, your life is going to change so much over the next year, especially if you stick with this. Just because we're looking at 30 pounds over 90 days does not mean that it has to stop there. I've had a couple people make comments that, hey, I'm a little worried that you're just going to drop us at 90 days. Heck no! Let's both make a commitment that we're going to keep this going forever. If my camera breaks, I make a commitment that I'll get another camera. Okay? If I'm ever 2 or 3 days without putting up a video, just know I'm probably sick, right? Because I walk every day. So the only way I would ever ditch a video is if I was ill for whatever reason. So if that happens, don't just leave the channel. Just know I'll be back as soon as I can. But I don't really get sick, When a lot of the things you do are healthy, you tend to have healthier stretches in life. If you were sickly back at Christmas or Thanksgiving and your health wasn't that great, I think you're going to start to notice a real positive change. There's something really healthy about just walking and then plotting out your day. Some people plot out their day while they're on their walk. If that's you, let me know in the comments, I was talking earlier today, because this is my second walk of the day, second walk with a camera too. I was talking earlier in the day about toxic friends. So let's talk a little bit about toxic friends for the remainder of this walk. I think we've all had them, right? But here's a question I have for you. Although we've all had them and we want to avoid toxic friends, sometimes we play the role of the toxic friend ourselves. Are you that person? Or better yet, were you ever that person and you caught yourself and you got out of that role? Sometimes we can be the one that tell our friends, don't be that way, eat a piece of cake, come have beers with us, right? Come have drinks, let's have a glass of wine. If you're doing that to a friend that's trying to get off of alcohol, they might be trying to get off of alcohol because it might be slowly ruining their life and they're just keeping that part secret. So that's where you have to really, really ask yourself, am I doing something positive by trying to get this person to do something they don't want to do? Am I being a toxic friend? Am I there to tell them about my problems, but then when they mention their problems, do I just shut down and ignore them? If you have a friend where if you can't make your rent and they're always there for you to help you, do you pay that forward when people ask you for things, or do you immediately shut them down? Are you the type of person that never gives, right? I'm one of these people. I believe that what you take from the world requires you to give, right? There's give and take in this place that we call life, right? And so if you're the type that just constantly takes, and takes, it's time to change that. Even if you only change it for your family, right? Hey, I'm going to be a taker in life, but when it comes to my son and daughter, I'm going to be a giver, right? Are you the type that if somebody buys you lunch, do you pay them back a couple of lunches later and surprise them by buying them lunch? Or are you the type that takes out your pen and paper and says, hey, I bought somebody a $50 lunch, they only bought me a $10 lunch, I'm not buying them anything until we get even Steven? Because that might be the wrong way of thinking, you know? What if your friend is so poor financially, so cash-strapped, that it's just impossible for them to help you? Are there circumstances where you can overlook that? I've had friends like that before where I knew, hey, every time I go out with Bill, I'm going to have to pay for everything, otherwise Bill can't go out. Well, does that mean we ditch Bill and no longer want to be his friend because he's poor or broke? You know, Bill might have some major problems. He might have gotten a divorce and he might owe a lot of money to a lawyer or to alimony or to back child support. There's a million reasons why people can be successful and able to do things one minute and totally desolate of money and means the next. So what I challenge you is, if you are that type of person that keeps tabs and ledgers and, oh, I lent Joey $20 and I never got it back, quit loaning money. Give money. What? Why would I do that? That's stupid. Yeah, a lot of financial gurus will tell you to get rid of friends that are draining you, but I'm not a financial guru. If your friend needs lunch or they don't want to go and you can tell they're broke, and so you try to peer pressure them into going out to eat lunch or dinner, treat them to lunch or dinner. Don't write it down. Don't remember that, hey, last Thursday I took them out to dinner. They perpetually owe me something in the future. Nobody owes you anything. You should want to take your friends and family out. It should be okay that you buy dinner for your buddy, okay? And what kind of buddy is it if every time you buy them something, you keep a ledger of it, okay? You keep an account. Don't be that type of person, okay? Now, there's a cutoff there, okay? I'm not unrealistic. I'm a human being. You don't want to have a situation where your friend is constantly relying on you, where all of a sudden you look back and you say, my God, I haven't given Bill just a lunch or a dinner. I've given him $3,000 this past year. Don't be a sap, right? Don't be a simp like that, right? Where you're giving everybody anything at the drop of a hat. You know, you gotta constantly ask yourself, do I want to give this person money? Is it worth investing in their life? But if it's your best friend from grade school and this person has been in your life through thick and thin, and once upon a time you were struggling and they were there for you, I hate to tell you this, but you should help your friend out in that situation. And again, if somebody's never going to help themselves, sometimes you have to walk away and say, hey, I'm willing to meet you halfway, Joey, but you got to meet me halfway here, at least try to work, right? Because sometimes people are broke and they'll get one of these jobs where they don't have paid time off. And even though they're broke and they can't really afford not to work, they'll still take days off. There are people that are legit lazy out there. There are people that put themselves in the spot that they make. You've heard that expression, you've made your bed, now lie in it, right? So there are people that make mistakes, but again, if you're their friend or buddy, you shouldn't be pounding that into their head. You give them advice. Hey, Joyce, you don't always make the right decision. Maybe you should write down the pros and cons and think about what you're doing. Hey, Joyce, you know what I've been doing? I've been taking a walk every day. And when I take a walk, I kind of dive into my think tank and I try to make plans on what's the best way to handle A, B, and C. You know, I'm not saying you have to do it, but why don't you try taking a walk every day? Right? These are things that you can tell your friends that it could go in one ear and out the other, but you know, could you imagine if your friend said, hey, you know, Barbara, I took your advice. I decided every morning to take a little walk, and you know what? I'm feeling better. My constant fatigue that I go through every day, it's lessening. I even lost a couple pounds. I stopped drinking soda and I started drinking water, and I'm feeling great. Thank you for telling me that one day when we went out that maybe a walk would change things for me. And if anybody here, like Lupe, who's been walking with me for a long time now, Lupe, you could probably tell us best. Are there ever moments when you're on your walk, you know, where you do think about what you're going to do with the problem that you're dealing with? Do you ever dive into a think tank while you're on your walk? Do you notice that when you're walking and taking in the sun and taking in the fresh air, do you notice that you're inspired and you come up with more ideas? Because see, I think when you're on your walk, guys, I think you're at a higher level than when you're just sitting around the house watching TV. When you're on your walk, you can really think about things in a way that's just not possible when you're watching TV and dealing with people. So again, you're in a new season. 90 days from now, you are going to look different. Do you want to get rid of your clothes? Do you want to take your clothes up to a place like Savers or Goodwill, where those clothes can help somebody that's maybe down on their luck? When you go to Goodwill, you'll see a lot of soccer moms there, right? Because people like to shop for little knickknacks and stuff. But you're also going to see people that are homeless and trying to get a job, so they need to get a suit or something. Your suit that's hanging in your closet, that's collecting dust, that's an expensive suit that you're not ever going to wear. Why don't you take it to Goodwill and make somebody's day? You know, you have 4 pairs of shoes in your closet, ladies, that are basically brand new, but for whatever reason you've never worn them. Why don't you take them to Goodwill? And Goodwill will sell them for pennies on the dollar so that somebody that's less fortunate than you can wear those beautiful looking shoes, right? Now, I'm not saying get rid of your family jewelry. You don't want to do that. Keep your expensive stuff that you love, right? Your heirlooms and what have you. But heck, if you have a couple of clothing articles that you never wear, or maybe you have some old stools or chairs or furniture or even TV and computers that you don't use, drop them off at the Goodwill. People buy that stuff every day, and they're not necessarily buying it to resell it on eBay for a profit. Most of the people there are actually not the richest, and they're there to buy something so that they feel like they're getting that same feeling you get when you go buy something at the mall. I bet you never thought about that, did you? When you go to the mall and you have lunch or a breakfast with your family and then you go shopping, you're getting these dopamine hits, right? Like, oh my God, I love shopping. So many of us do. Well, just because you're poor and broke doesn't mean that you don't want to go shopping. So poor and broke people sometimes are forced to go to places like the dollar store and Goodwill. So the next time you're at Walmart or Target and you don't think too much of it, just know right now there is somebody at the dollar store because they can't afford Walmart or Target. Right now there is somebody at the Goodwill because they can't afford the mall. If you're in a good spot and if you end up losing a ton of weight, which I know you're going to, take those old clothes, take them down to Goodwill and make somebody's day. You know, when you see a homeless person, yeah, I might be upset that we see so many homeless people because I think that says more about our society than them. But when you see a homeless person and he or she is down on their luck and they ask you for $1 and you've got change jingling in your pocket, don't tell yourself, well, I'm not going to give this guy $1 so he can just go get drunk. Give him $1 knowing that he's probably going to go get drunk, because that's what people want to do when they're super, super down on their luck, right? Who cares what they want to spend your $1 on? Give them the damn $1, you know? There's an old saying that many of us have heard that if you feed a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That's true if there's a watering hole with fish in it, right? But sometimes you live in a place like Phoenix where there's no place to fish except a canal. And, you know, a lot of times homeless people don't necessarily feel like fishing all day for their food, you know? So if you can help others, it's kind of your responsibility to do so, at least if you're a believer like I am, right? Feed people, help people, enjoy helping people, get used to taking your friends and family out, buy them lunch and dinner, don't ask them to buy you a thing, okay? It goes back to doing the right thing. Do you need applause for every time you do something right? Every time you do something that's courageous, do you need somebody to tell you how courageous it was? Every time you help out a friend, do you need somebody to tell you what a wonderful friend you are? You already know you are. Sometimes it's embarrassing to tell people, thank you, I couldn't make it without you. Sometimes that's embarrassing to people. Don't make them do that. Help them because it's the right thing to do. And take a second walk like I did on your day off. I'll talk to you later.